Most of us experience our first brush with love while we're still navigating the awkward corridors of high school or trying to survive the chaos of college life. And for Alex Skeel, a now 28-year-old man from the quaint little village of Stewartby in Bedfordshire, England, his story seemed no different at first. Boy meets girl, sparks fly, happily ever after, right? But Alex's story took a dark, jaw-dropping turn that nobody saw coming, leaving even the most hardened among us utterly speechless. Because you see, the woman who claimed to love him, Jordan Worth, was secretly leading a double life as his abuser. Yeah, I know. You're probably thinking, wait, what? Trust me, it gets worse. Much worse. Alex endured years of unthinkable abuse at her hands. Emotional, psychological, and physical, and it all culminated in a near-death experience that finally pulled back the curtain on Jordan's heinous deeds. And when the truth finally spilled out, it wasn't just shocking, it was horrifying. But let's back it up a bit. Alex didn't exactly have the easiest start in life. Born prematurely on August 17th, 1995, alongside his twin brother Luke, the odds were stacked against him from day one. At just 2 pounds, Alex spent his earliest days fighting for survival in intensive care. It was touch and go for a while, with multiple surgeries and plenty of sleepless nights for his parents. But against all odds, both Alex and Luke pulled through. Not only that, but they went on to become child models for the British supermarket chain Asda. Yep, imagine tiny Alex rocking adorable outfits and living his best life. An unexpected silver lining to what could have been a tragic start. Fast forward to his teenage years, and Alex grew into a pretty typical kid. He was obsessed with football, or as us Yanks call it, soccer, spent weekends on the pitch with friends, and seemed to have life all figured out. By the time he turned 16 in June 2012, Alex was enrolled at Bedford College, where he met Jordan Worth, a fellow student studying fine arts. And as cliche as it sounds, their love story began the way so many do. Boy meets girl, boy falls head over heels for girl. Alex, who'd never really been all that interested in dating before, was suddenly smitten. He described Jordan as caring, confident, and loving, a triple threat for any teenager navigating the tumultuous waters of young love. At first, everything seemed perfect. Jordan got along with Alex's friends, albeit a little reserved compared to the rest of the group. She even made a solid first impression on his family. But then the cracks started to show. They were small at first, almost too subtle to notice. Comments about his clothes, little jabs about his hairstyle, suggestions that seemed more like demands, the kind of stuff that makes you go, huh, that's odd. Alex brushed it off, chalking it up to the usual compromises people make in relationships, but looking back, those weren't compromises. They were red flags. Bright red, waving frantically. Even Alex's parents couldn't ignore it. They warned him that Jordan seemed to be playing mind games, but love is blind, and Alex shrugged it off. To him, things were different when they were alone. Sure, she was a little demanding, but he was confident it was no big deal. Oh, Alex, sweet, naive Alex. Things hit a boiling point on August 17th, 2013, Alex and Luke's 18th birthday. Their mom had planned an epic party, complete with a caterer and all their friends. It should have been a night to remember for all the right reasons. Instead, Jordan made it memorable for all the wrong ones. When she found out that a certain family friend's 15-year-old daughter would be at the party, she flat out refused to attend. After some coaxing, Alex convinced her to show up, but the night ended in disaster when Jordan got into a heated argument with the girl, hurling nasty insults and generally acting, well, unhinged. From that point on, the fights became more frequent and more intense. In one particularly alarming incident, Jordan snapped Alex's phone's SIM card in half, effectively cutting him off from his friends and family. It was her way of isolating him, of tightening her grip. And for a moment, Alex saw the light. He broke things off with her, much to the relief of his loved ones. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed like he was free. But Jordan, she wasn't done with him yet, not by a long shot. Unfortunately, as is true in many abusive relationships, the separation between Alex and Jordan wouldn't last long. Just a few days after the breakup, Jordan arrived at the family's house with the shocking news that she was pregnant with Alex's child. He agreed to support Jordan and their child financially, but told her that they couldn't be in a relationship since he couldn't handle the mind games and her controlling behavior. For the next 12 months, they had virtually no contact, and for Alex, things couldn't have been better. Jordan gave birth to a healthy baby boy on the 19th of May, 2014, and without prior warning, Jordan showed up to the family's home with the boy so that everyone could meet him. Though Alex was unhappy with Jordan being invited into the house, his family felt that she had changed after becoming a mother since she showed none of the strange behavior that they had witnessed in the past. For Alex, though, the wounds still felt far too fresh, and he wanted to part in this. Instead, he decided to meet his son for the first time without Jordan present, opting instead to do so with his grandfather, who he was very close with, by his side. But before long, as you probably expected, Alex and Jordan started spending time together again while caring for their son. In the following year, they decided to get back together. This time, everything seemed different. Jordan truly seemed to have turned over a new leaf, and by Alex's own admittance, their relationship was better than it had ever been. But just a short while later, Alex's family started noticing more alarming behavior. And when Alex confronted Jordan about it, she lost her temper yet again. She then told Alex that he had to choose between her and his family. Alex didn't want to be separated from his son, and so he decided to move in with Jordan. His family wouldn't see him again for the next 2 years. The couple had moved into Jordan's parents' house, but here, Jordan's controlling behavior only escalated. She forced Alex to change his phone number, and on several occasions accused him of cheating on her with other women, even though Alex wasn't that kind of person and never showed any interest in anyone else. She also falsely told him that her mother had been informed by his family that his grandfather had passed away, but upon seeing how upset he was, she later admitted that she had lied. Why she did this, nobody knows. Despite all of this, the couple decided to find their own place in 2016, and they moved to Stewartby. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Alex and Jordan were getting along, their son was healthy, and they loved their new house. Since the relationship seemed to be better than ever before, they decided to have another baby, and soon Jordan was pregnant once again. While everything was going great during these days, their house of cards would soon come crashing down, and Alex could have never expected the terror and turmoil that his life was about to crash into. Jordan was still in college at this time. She had classes nearly every day, but as time passed by, she began to grow concerned that Alex may have been sneaking around behind her back while she was gone for the day. As it would turn out, she was right. But Alex wasn't sneaking around with other women. He was sneaking out to visit with his family. When Jordan found out about this, she was beyond livid. From this point on, she forced Alex to attend all of her classes with her so that she would always have an eye on him. Alex hesitantly agreed because he couldn't stand the thought of shaking the foundations of his already fragile family. It wasn't long after this that Jordan had set up a fake Facebook profile in Alex's name, and in the months that followed, she contacted his friends via private messages, stating that he wanted nothing to do with them and that he had never really considered them as his friends. Luckily, they quickly caught on and replied that they knew Jordan was the one messaging them, resulting in them being blocked from the fake profile. She also messaged his family pretending to be Alex, telling them that he didn't want any contact with them and that they should just leave him alone. Again, it seems the family knew that these messages weren't from Alex, but from Jordan. By this time, Alex's family had had enough, and they made up their minds to intervene. They knew that the couple had relocated to Stewartby, but when they finally tracked Alex down at his new address, their knocks were ignored despite the couple clearly being home. They were under the impression that Alex didn't want to see them, and so they had no choice but to leave. In the meantime, Jordan's behavior had gotten worse than ever before, and on one occasion, she forced Alex to swallow an entire packet of sleeping tablets, which left him with memory loss for the rest of the evening. When he finally woke up, he had no clue what had taken place. To this day, that evening is still a bit of a blur. A few days later, the two were driving in their car when, without provocation, Jordan picked up her hairbrush and started assaulting Alex with it, resulting in one of his teeth breaking off. She would later admit to the assault, but maintained that she had never been abusive towards him before, nor had she ever kept him from contacting his family. The investigation into this incident more or less ended there, but things would only get far, far worse from here. During the nights when Alex had fallen asleep before Jordan, he would repeatedly be awoken by blows to his head that would leave him with scars afterward. During one of these attacks, Alex was unsure what had happened, and to his shock, he realized that Jordan had assaulted him with a hammer. When questioned by police later on, Jordan would admit that she had in fact used a hammer to assault him, but inexplicably stated that she never meant to hurt him. But then investigators found out that she'd taken things a step further on a couple occasions, pulling out a knife. Her response to this accusation was even more baffling. She stated that, yes, she had used a knife to assault him, but she only ever cut him and never jabbed him with it, as if this would somehow make things better. It would seem that in her mind, the two actions were vastly different. But in reality, regardless of how things specifically played out, Alex's life was in constant danger. By this time, Alex had started to lose weight in a dramatic way. Since Jordan would sometimes not allow him to eat, this would usually be when she wasn't hungry and so didn't see the point in preparing dinner. It would seem that she prevented Alex from preparing dinner either. She also started prohibiting him from sleeping in their bed, instead forcing Alex to sleep on the floor. She would later make the excuse that there wasn't space for Alex since she was sharing their bed with their baby. But this was an obvious lie. If the pods are spiritual, Alex knew that he was in trouble by this point. There was no doubt in his mind that he was going downhill physically. But his judgment had become so clouded that he didn't know what to do. He saw no other option other than to contact his family for help. And in February of 2017, he contacted his father out of desperation. But when he arrived at the couple's house, all the lights were suddenly switched off, and Alex asked him to leave, which he refused to do. Instead, his father phoned the police since he suspected that Jordan was keeping him from coming outside. He didn't know how right he was. It would seem that for weeks or months leading up to this, Jordan had prevented Alex from leaving the house at any point without her accompaniment or approval. He was to remain in her line of sight at all hours of the day, no exception. When officers arrived later on, they spoke with the couple and then told Alex's father that the couple had merely had an argument and that the issue had been resolved. They did, however, mention that Alex was seen walking with a limp, but stated that there wasn't much they could do other than to ensure that the fight was well and truly over. Disappointed by the outcome, Alex's father had no choice but to leave empty-handed. It would seem that At this point, Alex was desperate to get out of the relationship, but Jordan's controlling behavior had gotten so out of control that he had no idea how to deal with it or how to escape the nightmare he was living. He was now a prisoner within his own home. He couldn't leave. He couldn't sleep. It almost felt as though he couldn't breathe without Jordan's permission. But quite unbelievably, the worst was yet to come. The crime Alex would later recall that he and Jordan went to see a band perform in Leeds one night, and he thoroughly enjoyed himself, not only because it was his favorite band, but because he and Jordan were having a good time, and he felt that he didn't need to worry about being abused for once, even if only for one night. But his relief was short-lived. The following morning, he woke up in their hotel room to the horrific realization that Jordan was pouring boiling water down his back for reasons unknown. He would later state that he had started screaming in pain and couldn't understand why she had done this. When Jordan was confronted about this by investigators later on, she merely stated that it was untrue since she had never poured boiling water on Alex whilst they were in Leeds, with her exact words being, "Never in Leeds, never." On another occasion, Jordan purchased a cheap lie detecting device which she then told Alex to strap to his hand. She quizzed him about all kinds of things, all the while standing ready with a kettle of boiling water which she intended to use if he was found by the machine to be untruthful. To make matters worse, Jordan would reveal a short while later that she had fallen pregnant yet again. But while most of us recoil in horror at the thought of this, Alex believed that having another baby together might bring about a change in Jordan's behavior. But, as is to be expected, this simply wasn't the case. Their second child, a girl, was born in May of 2017, and for the first few days, Alex did see a change in her behavior. But this wouldn't last long. The couple had started arguing again, and one night their neighbors had had enough and they decided to call the police. The caller would tell the 999 dispatcher that he was certain someone was being assaulted since he heard a man asking someone to stop hurting him and to get off of him. When officers arrived at the scene, they had to knock and call out several times before the door was opened by Jordan. The first officer to see her stated that she didn't seem in any way distressed, and she calmly stated that there had been an incident in which Alex had hurt himself. She added that he had a history of self-harm, which was, of course, untrue, but when the officer asked Alex whether this was the case, he stated that it was, likely out of fear that he would be assaulted if he contradicted her. It would later come to light that Jordan had been assaulting Alex with a bread knife, and in an effort to defend himself, he had put his hand in front of his face to avoid being cut, and in the process sustained a serious injury to his hand. After the police left, Alex went to a local hospital where he received stitches, and since the police officers couldn't see any evidence that a crime had been committed, they took the couple's word that the injury was self-inflicted and hence could do nothing further. The injury to Alex's hand was so severe that he needed surgery, but before this could happen, Jordan arrived and decided that he needed to go home instead. So, hospital staff were quick to realize what was going on, and they tried to convince him to stay, if only to undergo the necessary procedure. Alex was then seen by a consultant who asked him if he was sure that he wanted to leave since he felt that it would be unsafe. But Alex assured him that everything would be all right. And so, he left the hospital and went home with Jordan. He would later admit that in that moment, he knew he had a chance to reveal everything that had been done to him, but he was frightened at what the repercussions would be the next time that he was alone with Jordan. A few days later, the same officer who had been called to the house before returned to the property for yet another domestic incident report, and this time he sat Alex down to ask him whether he was being abused while he ordered Jordan to stay downstairs. But Alex stated that he and Jordan had merely been arguing since they were under a lot of stress, In body cam footage of the incident, Alex Skeel body cam footage, it becomes clear that the officer doesn't believe him and he decides to take Alex out of the house. He escorted Alex to his patrol car and asked him to finally tell the truth since they were in a safe environment where they couldn't be overheard. Alex stuck to his story for a short while, but eventually relented and admitted that he had been suffering abuse at Jordan's hand for years, but he pleaded with investigators to only rely on neighbors' reports since he didn't want Jordan to find out that he had been the one who accused her of the crime. Officers returned to the house and informed Jordan that she was being placed under arrest for assault and that she would be taken to the police station for questioning, where she would be allowed to tell her side of the story. The officer would later report that Jordan mistakenly thought she would be out of the house for about an hour or so, and that she would be allowed to leave as soon as everything had been cleared up. So Alex ends up back in the hospital. And this isn't one of those pop in for a quick checkup situations. Nope, this was the kind of hospital visit where the doctors look at you like, dude, how are you still alive? Turns out, because of all the head trauma Alex had endured, fluid had started building up on his brain. Yeah, that's as bad as it sounds. The doctors told him straight up that if he hadn't gotten treatment when he did, he would have been dead in 10 days. 10 days. Jordan had basically turned his life into a countdown timer without him even realizing it. But here's the kicker. When investigators later spoke to Alex, he admitted that he never fought back, never once raised a hand to defend himself. Why? Because in his words, he didn't want to hurt her. I mean, the guy was getting absolutely destroyed physically, emotionally, and mentally, and yet he was still worried about her feelings. That's next level compassion right there. Alex also said he never reported the abuse because he thought, get this, that it would eventually stop and their relationship would magically get better. Spoiler alert, it didn't. So finally, the police get involved, and when they question Jordan, she straight up admits to everything. All of it. There was no denial, no excuses, just a full confession of the horrific abuse she inflicted on Alex. The result, Jordan was hit with 17 counts of grievous bodily harm and controlling or coercive behavior. And here's where it gets groundbreaking. She became the first woman in the UK to be convicted of coercive control. Historic moment, but not exactly the legacy you'd want attached to your name, right? In April 2018, Jordan was handed 2 7-year sentences to be served at the same time, and an extra 6-month sentence for the coercive control charge. Justice served, right? Well, sort of. Fast forward to 2023, and Jordan gets released after serving just 5 years. Why? Because they decided she was no longer a risk to the community. Okay, but what about Alex? Shouldn't his safety count for something? Fortunately, she's banned from ever contacting him again. And honestly, at this point, who even cares where she is or what she's doing? Good riddance, Jordan. The trash took itself out. As for Alex, his story doesn't end with hospital stays and courtrooms. After his release from the hospital, he moved back in with his family, who were beyond relieved to have him home, safe and alive. But Alex didn't just sit around licking his wounds. No, my guy picked himself up and turned his nightmare into something positive. He's now a football coach and works as an ambassador for the Mankind Initiative, a charity dedicated to supporting male victims of domestic abuse. Oh, and they even sponsor his football team. Talk about coming full circle. But that's not all. Alex has made it his mission to raise awareness about abuse. He's hosting talks, sharing his story, and helping others recognize the red flags that he missed. He's vowed to inspire other victims to escape their situations and find safety proving that even the darkest moments can lead to brighter futures. And here's the cherry on top. Alex is now focused on building a promising future for his kids. That's right, the man who was nearly killed by the woman who claimed to love him is now a loving dad working hard to make the world a better place. As for Jordan, yeah, nobody cares. She's a footnote in Alex's story, a cautionary tale about why boundaries and self-worth matter. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, let me spell it out for you. You are worth more than you probably give yourself credit for. You are above being belittled, manipulated, or physically assaulted. And like I've said before, it's never too early to get out of a bad situation, but it can absolutely be too late. So if you're in a similar situation, let Alex's story be your wake-up call. You deserve better, period. And on that note, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Tales. Shout out to Juan from Top 5 Unknowns for helping me dig into this case while I still can't use a mouse or keyboard properly. If you liked this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and maybe hit that join button if you want early access to my future videos. It's free and it makes me happy. My name's Ray, you've been awesome, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.